Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunaham Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. Okay, let's read the verses that we covered last time. So from verse 26. Ashvathah sarva vrikshadam devarshidam cha naradaha gandharvanam chitraratah siddhanam kapilo munihi uchai shravasamashvana vidhi mamamritodbhavam Airavattam Gajendranam Naranam cha Naradhipam Ayudhanamaham Vajram Dhenunam Kamadhuka Prajanaschasmi Kandarpaha Sarpanam Vasukihi. So we are on verse number 28, right? Bhagavan, last week, he was mentioning his glories as the Ashwatha tree of all the trees because it reminds us of what is samsara. It actually makes us reflect on this samsara that we're surrounded by. And he says of all the Deva Rishis, he is Narad Rishi, who always comes into our lives to guide us to that reality. And of all the Gandharvas, he's Chitraratha, the one who's able to lose themselves in music. And of all the Siddhas, he is Kapil Muni, the one who has realized the self when he was a child himself. And of the horses, he is Uchai Shravas. Of the elephants, he's Airavata. And of all beings, Bhagavan's vibhuti is that he's the king. Of all weapons, he's the Vajra. And of all the cows, he's the Kamaduk, the one who fulfills the desires of those who selflessly get together for a greater vision. We now have to go through Prajanash Chasmi Kandarpaha. Here he says, Prajanaha, the progenitor. Cha asmi, I am Kandarpaha. So I am Kamadeva. Kamadeva, we can also understand as Cupid. I am that desire that comes into beings to unite with another. So when we talk about desire, even in the previous chapters, Bhagavan said in chapter 7, I am desire. But what desire? The desire that's not opposed to Dharma. So whenever two people come together with the desire to be together and create and bring forth a new life, Bhagavan says that is me. In fact, of all the ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa, Grahastha is extolled because it is the ashrama that upholds all other ashramas. And it is the ashrama that actually contributes to the well-being of a nation. So when people get married with that desire to have a child, to have somebody who can contribute to the well-being of the nation, who can carry all of this forward, Bhagavan says, I am that desire. And being in a family, having a children is very, very noble because there's so many lessons we learn. Now, today I'm going to share with you a very beautiful excerpt. Now, this is from this book called The Parents' Tao Te Ching. It's a really nice book, but I'll read this to you and we can just dwell on the beautiful lessons of having children. And that's why Bhagavan says, I am this desire. He says here, do not ask your children to strive for extraordinary lives. Such striving may seem admirable, but it is the way of foolishness. Help them instead to find the wonder and the marvel of an ordinary life. Show them the joy of tasting tomatoes, apples, and pears. Show them how to cry when pets and people die. Show them infinite pleasure in the touch of a hand and make the ordinary come alive for them. The extraordinary will take care of itself. It's a very, very beautiful passage. This is from The Parents' Tao Te Ching, Ancient Advice for Modern Parents by William Martin. And what parenting, guiding, mentoring, what all of that teaches us really is how to become better people. Whenever there's someone to take care of, to guide, to teach, it makes us think about ourselves. It makes us think about how we are living life, because that child or that person is not merely learning by what we speak, but that child is learning by how we behave. So when people do have children, choose to have children, it's a whole different world. I know some people want pets instead of children, but really there's something beautiful about having children. It just makes us way, way better. It makes us raise our standards and our way of life. And a very important lesson is also had when people have children or have people that they're taking care of. And that is the important lesson of letting go. This karma phala tyaga, letting go of the results of actions. No matter how many times we hear it, we still don't get it. But when we have children or when we have people we're taking care of, we are forced to get it. Because eventually they grow apart from us. They grow independent of us. And they may even physically leave us. So that whole idea of letting go is also a beautiful, beautiful lesson learned by parents, by guides, by teachers. And having a child just brings the whole sadhana chatushtaya into the forefront. All the qualities that are needed for a seeker, like Viveka, the capacity to think rightly, to distinguish between the permanent and impermanent. Vairagya, detachment. Shama, control of mind. Dama, control of senses. Uparama, withdrawing from unnecessary activity. Because there's a time in the child's life when we have to be really involved, but there's a time where we have to just watch from the back. It teaches Titiksha, forbearance, endurance, forbearing all kinds of things for the comfort of the child. It takes Shraddha, faith, that even if the child has fallen again and again, they will rise. And Samadhana, the ability to just be with them and concentrate, to pay full attention to what we're doing. And it also teaches us mumukshutva. After growing out of these desires, it teaches us that there's some greater desire that we should seek, and that is a desire for the self. So this desire, Bhagavan says, is me, is my vibhuti, because it helps one grow and unfold. Next, he says, Sarpanam asmi vasuki. Among serpents, I am Vasuki. Serpent is the snake with a single hood. Now, in the churning of the Milky Ocean, we talked about it last week. The Milky Ocean, was churned, and that Milky Ocean was churned by the Devatas on one side and the Asuras on the other side. And their churning rod was known as Vasuki. Vasuki is a serpent. So the churning rod was Vasuki. Now, Vasuki is symbolic of our ego. When the Milky Ocean was being churned, that churning rod was pulled in all sorts of directions. Because you can imagine the Devatas on one side, the deities, and the Asuras, the demons on the other side. They were churning. So this Vasuki was pulled in so many, many directions. Constantly pulled, constantly twisted, constantly turned, constantly held. It didn't stop until that Amrita came out. So imagine how exhausted Vasuki might be. Because constantly they're pulling at him, tugging at him, twisting him, turning him, twirling him. But he just stayed there. He stayed there until the pot of Amrita, or the nectar, came out. Now, what that means is, in the spiritual path, our ego is that churning rod of the mind. It's going to be pulled and pushed and twirled and twisted in so many directions by so many people. There's a moment when people will increase our ego by praise, but then another moment people will criticize us. There's a moment that people will compliment us, and there's a moment where people will diss us. It's just a constant push and pull, push and pull, push and pull. It's a constant up and down. And that ego has to keep itself available for being broken, for being twirled and twisted. Sometimes we are so scared in our path that we do everything to protect our ego. We do everything to protect our ego because we don't want our ego hurt. But a spiritual seeker is one who exposes their ego to be churned, to be hurt, to be weakened. Because only when we expose our ego to be broken, that's when immortality really comes. Immortality doesn't come from reading books or talking about Vedanta. It comes when our ego breaks. So anytime there's a chance, there's an opportunity for our ego to be broken, take it. If there's an opportunity for our ego to be protected, don't take it. The breaking of the ego is the most beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful thing. And remember, Bhagavan will send us all kinds of things, and he'll only send what we need. And if we accept it with open arms and say, yes, Bhagavan, let this come and let it break the ego, it's absolutely fine. Then guess what? That's the moment we grow. But if we try to resist it and say, Bhagavan, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, it's going to keep coming to us. Because we will not be left until that immortality comes. Remember this, we will not be left. So therefore, anytime there's an opportunity for the ego to be broken, take it. Because it's absolutely a blessing. And know that when we take it, immortality is just right there. It's about to come. Because that's what comes through this journey. So of all the Sarpas, Bhagavan says, I am Vasuki. Think of me as Vasuki, the one who is able to take the breaking of the ego. We're moving on now to verse number 29. Okay. Anantaschasmi naganam
Anantaschasmi naganam
Varuno yadasamaham
Varuno yadasamaham
Pitrunamaryamaschasmi
Pitrunamaryamarchasmi
Yamassamyamatamaham
Yamasamyamatamaham
Anantaschasmi naganam Varuno yadasamaham Pitrunamaryamaschasmi Yamassamyamatamaham. He says, Anantaha, Anantaha cha asmi naganam. Among the Nagas, Nagas are now the multi-hooded snakes. I am Anantaha. Anantaha is Sheshnag. Sheshnag. Varuno Yadasamaham. Among the water deities, Yadasam, Aham Varunaha. I am Varuna. Pitrana. Among the ancestors, I am Aryama. Aryama. And Samyamatam. Amongst the controllers, I am Yamaha. Aham Yamaha. So what does this mean? Of all those Nagas, so it says, Sarpa, when we say the word Sarpa, it's the single-headed snake. When we say Naga, it's the multi-headed snake. So of all the Nagas, he says, I am Sheshnaga. Sheshnag is the one, the bed of Nagas where Narayan, Vishnu Bhagwan lays. So, Vishnu Bhagwan, when he's described, Vishnu Bhagwan, Narayana, he lays on this bed of 1,000 hooded snakes. He lays on that bed. And therefore, Bhagwan says that 1,000 hooded snake is my vibhuti. Why is that my vibhuti? Because Gurudev says very beautifully, our minds, they're like 1,000 hooded snake. There's so many, many different desires, so many ways we want to entertain ourselves, so many things we want to do, so many goals we have to achieve. And it's constantly seeking outward. It's almost like we have 1,000-headed snake in our minds. But this Sheshnaga, it has 1,000 heads, but guess what? All of its heads are turned towards Bhagavan. The heads are not seeking out in the world. They're not going out in the world. They have no sense of joy or satisfaction out in the world. The 1,000 heads are all turned to Bhagavan. And what that means, what Bhagavan's trying to say is, I am that seeker who has turned all of their desires unto that one main desire. Chapter 2, we saw Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi. There's somebody who has infinite number of desires. But the true seeker is the one who has the infinite as the desire. So Bhagavan is praising all those people who have the infinite as the desire, that anything that they would want, they only find at the feet of Bhagavan. Anything that they would ever want to have, anything that they would think can fulfill them, can protect them, can secure them, they only find them in Bhagavan. They only find these things in Bhagavan, and that's why all of the heads are turned towards Narayana. And it's also symbolic to say that when all of our heads, all of our desires, goals are turned inward, there only Bhagavan will rest. Then only Bhagavan will manifest. Bhagavan will not come into our lives if we are seeking something else. Bhagavan will only come when we turn all of our attention towards him. So this is the message of Anantaschasmi Nagana. Varuno Yadasamaham. It says, of all the water deities, I am Varuna. Now, here, Varuna is also another name for Jhulelal. Jhulelal is the deity of the Sindhis. And there's a beautiful story that in Sindh, at some point in time, people were living by the river, the Sindhu River. And the Mughals came and they wanted to convert the Sindhis into Islam. And they asked for 40 days. They asked for 40 days because they wanted to pray to the river. In those days, they would pray, they would offer prayers to the river, to the sun, to the sky. And so they prayed towards the river. They took up some austerities and they prayed. After this, what happened is a voice came out and said that I'm going to be born as Jhulelal. The name before that is actually Uderolal. I'll be born as Uderolal. And in this home of Devaki Mata. And so in this home of Devaki Mata, there was, when she gave birth, actually there was a baby, but from that baby came out an older man who was sitting on a fish. And that man said, I will help you, I will help you and protect your faith. And when the king again, came and tried to convert the people and tried to take all of the people to his side, that's when Uderolal, known as Jhulelal, he's known as Jhulelal because when he was a baby, his cradle would swing by itself, and cradle's called Jhula. So he came in between, and when Jhulelal came in between, the whole kingdom was he made sure that the whole kingdom was drowned in water and fire. And when the king came to plead to him, then Jhulelal stopped everything. And he restored the king to safety. And he said, you must understand that there's only one God. You don't have to convert somebody else to some other religion, right? Everybody is worshiping that reality in their own way. And you must pay respect to that. So that Varuna, who protected the people from this conversion, from converting their faith, that Varuna who kept our belief system intact, and that Varuna who gave solace to the people, Bhagavan says, I am that Varuna. Of all of the water deities, I am that which will always protect you when you seek me. And he says here, Pitrunam Aryama. Among the ancestors, Aryama is the foremost ancestor. And in Sanatana Dharma, we have certain days where we remember our ancestors. And some people might think, why do you have to even think about your grandfather, grandmother, your ancestors, your family? It's actually to just be grateful of all of the things that we learned. Whenever we have these family reunions or family moments, or now I know everybody's going to see their families in Thanksgiving, that's when we really sit down and come to think about every single thing that we learned from our family. So in our culture, our ancestors are always worshipped because it is because of their strife that we have our culture. And when we think of our ancestors, we shouldn't only think of our parents, but think about the freedom fighters who protected Bharatiya culture. Think of the people who protected our language, protected our religion, who protected our temples, our places, who kept everything in its sanctity. So we remember that. And when we remember the sacrifices that people make for us, it makes us value them more. For Thanksgiving, many people say, okay, count your blessings, be grateful for your blessings. But more important than counting our blessings is making our blessings count. We can count them on our fingers. I got this, I have this, I have that. But that doesn't give a heart to it. When we actually understand what we've given or what we've been given, then we think, I need to make this blessing count. I've received this from my parents. I need to make this blessing count. I've received this from my country. I need to make this blessing count. That's actually the true spirit of Thanksgiving. It's not just, some gratitude list and gratitude journal. It's what do you do with that? Many people talk about I'm grateful and write what you're grateful for. But what do you do when you recognize that you've received so much? What you do, that is gratitude. Not just the acknowledgement of it, but that which we do after the acknowledgement, that is a true sign of gratitude. So in this Vibhuti, Bhagavan's also telling us, remember your ancestors, remember who you came from, where you came from, and the foremost one is Aryama. And then he says, Samyamatam aham, among the controllers, I am Yama. Yama is the lord of death. Now here in our culture, we worship death. For us, death is a vibhuti. It's not a fear, it's a vibhuti. And I'll tell you why. Because if there was no death, everything would be overcrowded, isn't it? There's a reason that the food chain functions the way it is. We might think, when you think of the food chain, it's quite violent, animals eating other animals. But actually, that makes the whole food chain function. The predators have to prey. They have to prey because otherwise, those other animals will eat everything, will eat all the plants, will eat all the vegetables, will eat everything. So actually, everything is made perfectly so that things die. The flower has to die so the fruit can bloom. The seed has to die so the sprout can occur. Our older people, they have to go, they have to die because new birth has to come. Old places, old buildings have to be demolished so that new structures can come alive. So this death is actually a vibhuti. It's a vibhuti for us. When people die, because it's a sign. When people die, when things die, it's a sign that new growth has to happen, new birth has to happen. And it's absolutely okay. It's just the way the world works. And especially for us, when an older person dies, right? When an older person dies, it's a sign now that that person is ready, that jiva is ready to move on to a new body. So in one frame or in one side, we might think that we're losing this person. But actually, no, it's paving the way for this jiva to take up another body. It's paving the way now for this jiva to be released from this bondage, to be released from these aches and pains, and hopefully take on or move on to a better world. So that in itself is like, this is a chance now for this jiva to go. Let that jiva go, right? If it happened to you and me, and if we were growing older and we're ready now to leave this body and people are holding us back, that would be painful. when we're ready to move on, when we're ready to do something else, experience a new life, and people are holding us down, that would be painful for us, isn't it? So we see in our culture, we see death as also a vibhuti. It's a chance actually for new life. So even in that, Bhagavan says, you remember me. And what to talk about the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2, it says, Nainam chendanti shastrani, Nainam dahati pavakaha, na kledayantyapaha, na shoshayati marutaha. Meaning that when the body dies, it's also a chance to remember the deathless Atman. When the body dies, it's a chance to remember that the true Atman is deathless. No weapon can destroy it. No sword can cut it. No fire can burn it. No water can wet it. No wind can dry it. So death is also a beautiful time to remember our indestructibility as the Atman. That's my vibhuti, Bhagavan says. We move on to the next verse. Prahladashchasmi daityanam.
Prahladaschasmi daityanam.
Kalah kalayatamaham.
Kalakalayatamaham.
Mriganam cha mrigendroham.
Mriganam cha mrigendroham.
Vainateyascha pakshinam.
Vainateyascha pakshinam.
Prahladashchasmi daityanam. Kalah kalayatamaham. Mriganam cha mrigendroham. Vainateyascha pakshinam. He says, of all the daityas, of all the asuras, I am Prahlada. Of all the reckoners, I am time, I am Kalaha. Of all the beasts, Mrigana, I am Mrigendraha. Mrigendraha means lion, lord of beasts. And then he says, of all the pakshis, of all the birds, Pakshinam, Aham Vainateyaha. I am the son of Vinata. I am Garuda. So here, very beautifully, he says, of all the daityas, of all the asuras, there's so many asuras, he says, I am Prahlada. Now, I know so many of us know the story of Prahlada, but let's just take a moment to reflect on how beautiful it is. First, the meaning of Prahlada says here, Hlada means bliss. Prakrishtaha hladaha yasyaha. The one who revels in exalted bliss. That's called Prahlada. Prakarshena hladayati. And also the one who gives exalted bliss is called Prahlada. Now, we all know that Hiranyakashipu is the father of Prahlada. And Hiranyakashipu went to do intense tapasya because he wanted to be immortal. Wanted to be immortal. And while he went away to do tapasya, Indra Devata started defeating all the Rakshasas. And when he was about to defeat when he was about to take Kayadu is the wife of Hiranyakashipu, who was carrying Prahlada, Narada took Kayadu and said, please come to me and you should not be harmed because your son is going to be a very, very divine being. And so Hiranyakashipu, he went, because of his intense tapasya, he got that boon that he cannot be killed daytime or nighttime, inside or outside. not in the earth, not in the sky, not by a man, not by an animal, and not by a weapon or not by the hand. To all these things he put together so he wouldn't be killed, right, to protect himself. And when he came back, he was just devastated to see everything was such a mess. And on top of that, Prahlad now was born. When Prahlada was born, all he kept saying is Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. And his father, Hiranyakashipu, never liked that because it was Narayana who killed whose brother, Hiranyaksha. And Hiranyakashipu tried to have Prahlad tortured. So imagine, this is your own son, his own son. He tried to have Prahlada tortured. He had Prahlada thrown off a mountain top. He had Prahlada trampled upon by elephants. He had Prahlada fed into a pit of snakes. He tried to do everything possible, you name it, to destroy and kill his own son. But this Prahlada, because all he had in his heart was Narayana, he couldn't be defeated. It reminds us of Name Bhaktah Pranashyati. No matter what he tried, Hiranyakashipu tried everything, he couldn't be defeated. And that's when he finally tells his sister Holika to sit in the fire with Prahlada. Because the idea is Holika she has a boon that she can't get burnt. And if she puts Prahlada on her lap, then maybe Prahlada will get burnt because she's holding him. But when the fire was put, Prahlada doesn't get burnt. Only Holika gets burnt. Her boon doesn't work. And that is a moment that's celebrated because it is bhakti. Bhakti that always wins. It's always bhakti. Hiranyakashipu gets so, just annoyed by Prahlada's devotion to Narayana. He can't even help. He doesn't want to hear Bhagwan's name. So imagine, he doesn't want to hear Bhagwan's name. He sends Prahlada to Gurukula with Shraddha and Amarka. And, in Gurukula, one day, Shraddha and Amarka took a day off. They went somewhere. And when they went somewhere, the people in the Gurukula, the Asuras, asked Prahlada to teach them. And he teaches them all beautiful things about devotion unto the feet of Bhagavan. So all of those Asuras were now converted into Devatas because of Prahlada, just because of his mere presence, just because of him being there. Some of the things I wanted to just share with you, some of the things that are said about Prahlada and some of the teachings that he has. It says that Vasudeve Bhagavati Yasya Naisargiki Ratihi. Prahlada never had to turn his mind to God. Why? Because his mind would never turn away from God. So imagine this was Prahlada. He never had to turn his mind and think about Bhagavan. We have to turn our minds. We have to tune our minds. Prahlada never had to do that because his mind was never turned away from Bhagavan. And Prahlada says here, very beautifully, he said, one of the teachings he gives is, in life, we never strive to get sorrow, right? We never strive to get sorrow. It just comes. Therefore, worldly joys will also come. Sorrow comes to us effortlessly, is it not? We're not doing anything. Sorrow comes knocking on our door. Here's a health issue. Here's a financial thing. Here's a family issue. It comes knocking on our door. We don't do anything. But sorrow comes, it knows our address. Why? Because it's our prarabdha karma. It will just come. So if sorrow comes into our life effortlessly, that means joy will also come effortlessly. Isn't it? So then why strive for joy, he says. Why should we let our minds run here and there for joy unnecessarily? Why not just put the minds into the highest? And when joy comes, let it come. And when sorrow comes, let it come. No need to run for it. No need to look for it. It'll come. And he says here that the greatest thing that we can have in life is devotion to the feet of Bhagavan. So this is Prahlada. And of all the asuras, Bhagavan says, I am Prahlada, because imagine the immense faith he had in Narayana. He never gave up. No matter how much Hiranyakashipu tortured him, tormented him, tried to kill him, Prahlada never gave up. Finally, after Gurukula was done, Prahlada came home, and then Hiranyakashipu got so upset at Prahlada and said, you keep calling out to Narayana. You keep calling out to Narayana. Show me, where is your Narayana? Is he in this pillar? And then Hiranyakashipu goes running to that pillar, and out comes Narasimha Bhagavan. It's neither night nor day, it's dusk. He takes Hiranyakashipu on the doorway. It's neither in nor out. He puts Hiranyakashipu on his lap. It's neither the raw earth or the sky. He looks as though he's half man, half lion. He's neither a man nor an animal. He's a man-animal. And as far as his weapon, he doesn't use his hands. He doesn't carry a weapon, but he uses his nails. And with his nails, he pierces through the stomach of Hiranyakashipu. And he saves his bhakta, Prahlada. And the relationship is so beautiful that after all of this, Bhagavan tells Prahlada, I'm so sorry that you had to wait for so long for me to come. I should have come for you sooner. I should have protected my devotees sooner. And he asks Prahlada, tell me what you want. What can I give you? And you know what Prahlada asks for? He says, let there be no desire that arises from my heart. I don't want anything. I already have you. And then Prahlada thinks for a moment and he says, maybe I should ask something. And he looks to Bhagavan and says, Bhagavan, I do want something. I don't want to be transactional, but there is something in my heart that I want. And Bhagavan says, what is it? He says, my father, please save him. Don't let him suffer unnecessarily. Please save him. And Narasimha Bhagavan looks at Prahlad and says, Prahlada, you are a bhakta, you are a devotee, and you are an exalted divine being. For someone like you, 21 of your generations will be saved. You don't even have to worry about it. 21 of your generations. Because you are in it. You are so pure that just by your presence, just by your character, you bring purity to those who have far gone and those who have yet to come. This is the quality of Prahlad. In him, we can see that unswerving faith, that bhakti will never ever let us down. We saw this also in chapter 9, that worship and worry don't belong together. If I am worshipping, then there's just no space for worry. If I'm truly worshipping Bhagavan, there's no space for worry. But if I'm worrying, it means I have forgotten my relationship with Bhagavan. So of all the Daityas, I am Prahlad. I am that Prahlad. Then he says here, Kalaha Kalayatam Aham. Of all the reckoners, I am time. Now see, what happens in our life is many things would have happened in the past. No? That people have argued, people have fought together, people, have taken revenge on each other, grudges that people have. And sometimes those relationships don't heal. No matter how much they communicate, no matter how much you try to make things work, they don't heal. But what is the one thing that heals everything? It's time. It's always time. Now, sometimes we get a disease or a wound. You try all the medicines to make it work. Why is this headache not going? Why is this cough not going? Why is cold not going? Actually, the only healer is time. It's just time. When they say time heals all wounds, this is what it means, really. That process of healing any argument, any fight, the process of healing any wound, any disease, the process of healing from a new transition, all of that, something that will always heal us is time. Is the most effective healer. It's the most effective healing agent. And there is something beautiful about the process of healing. There's a reason why healing doesn't come instantly. If healing came instantly, then we would never grow. There's a reason why when we're sick, it takes a couple of days, because it's telling us, hey, slow down now. Hey, relax a little bit. Look inward. Think about your life. Think about this. Think about that. There's a reason when somebody passes away, we have 13 days of prayers. It's because it's saying again, you will heal, but in this healing period, think about what you're doing with your life. Is it worth it? Am I living it to the fullest? There's a reason why relationships take time to heal. Is this relationship worth it? What could I have done better? How can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? So the one thing that solves everything is a gift of time. And sometimes that's all we need. That's all we need. Sometimes people will just say, we need some time apart, right? And just having that time apart is great. Sometimes when you go for vacation, a parent goes for vacation or a spouse goes for vacation. And when you come back home, you have a better relationship with your family. Yeah? Because that time, that time created that sense of understanding that how important this person was. This person left and I'm lost. But now when the person comes back, you feel a newfound love. So among the reckoners, I have time. Be grateful for that. And let everything flow when it needs to flow. Mriganam chamrigendroham. Mriganam. So of all the beasts, he says, Mrigendra, I am the lion. What's great about the lion? So there's this beautiful subhashita that I want to share with you about lions. It says, Nabhisheko na samskaraha simhasya kriyate vane vikramarjita sattvasya swayameva mrigendrata. What does it mean? It means that a lion doesn't go through any abhisheka, na abhisheka. No, there's no formal process for making the lion the king of the jungle, right? You've never seen that. That this is the abhisheka for the lion, this is the coronation ceremony, nothing like that. Na samskara, there's no samskara. Huh? But to make the lion king in the forest, Vikrama Arjita Satvasya. But because of the lion's valor, nobility, strength, automatically Swayameva Mrigendrata. Everybody understands that he's king. Huh? Some people, they have to go make noise. Make me king, make me king. I should be king, I should be king, I should be this, I should be that. Vote for me, like that. And, causing all this ruckus. So there are some people who try to get to places by power. But there are some people who get to places by their mere presence. And that's a lion. All a lion does is roars. And you know that he's a king. In the way that the lion walks, in the way that the lion moves, in the way that the lion roars, nobody is to make him king. He is king. He is king. And it's because of his own valor. Huh? So those are the greatest leaders who are not corrupted by power or position, but who are there by their mere presence. They lead by their presence. Hanumanji was like that. Hanumanji never told Sri Rama, you make me the lead Vanara in this, you make me this and you make me that, and I'll take over and I'll lead. Hanumanji never did that, never asked anything. But we all know who it was. Nobody has a doubt in their mind, isn't it? Who is the leader of the Vanaras? Nobody here will have a doubt. It was just his mere presence and devotion unto Sri Rama. So lions are like that. Vainateyascha pakshinam. Of all the birds, I am Garuda. Now, so what do we think about the eagle? Why is the eagle so special? The eagle is so special for a variety of reasons. They always say soar like an eagle. One is because it can soar really high. It can soar really high, but not only that, it has such a clear vision. It has even better vision than you and me. And it can see really far, like kilometers away. It can spot its prey, and it can zoom down and pick it up. So eagle has the capacity to soar really, really high. And it also has the capacity to see its prey and go down, zoom down really fast. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us, Bhagavan is trying to say that I am that bird, or I am that seeker that's always aiming really high, always soaring really high. And that soaring high, there's the beautiful story of the crow and the eagle, that soaring high no matter what. Once there was a crow, and while the eagle was trying to soar high, the crow kept pecking and pecking and pecking and pecking and pecking on the eagle. And it kept pecking, but the eagle didn't do anything except soared and soared and soared. And at some point, the eagle gets to a place where the oxygen is too thin and the crow can't peck anymore, and it falls off. So in this example also, Bhagavan's trying to say, keep soaring like an eagle. And even if people try to peck, or if somebody brings us down in any way, our only dharma is to keep soaring and soaring like an eagle. And at some point, we'll get to a place where the oxygen is too thin, that nobody will be able to sustain themselves at that level. Only the vision will sustain. That's the glory of Vainataya, that Garuda. And of course, Bhagavan says, I am Garuda because that is the Vahana of Bhagavan Vishnu. See me as that eagle who's always soaring high and who always has a clear vision. So today we'll stop with this verse. I'll take up the next one next week. for today's summary, we'll just recap. Today we saw that of all of that desire, Bhagavan says, I'm that desire to have children. That's a very noble desire, Bhagavan says, because it really makes us grow. It makes us become whole and makes us become better people. And of all the serpents, he says, I'm Vasuki. I'm the one representative of the ego who lets the ego be twisted, turned, pulled, hurt, stretched, so that eventually immortality comes out. Of all the nagas, he says, I am that Sheshanaga. May have 1,000 hoods, but all those hoods are turned towards Narayana, reminding seekers that all our desires should be turned towards Narayana. Of the water deities, I am Varuna, the one who protects people's faith, protects people's austerity, and sustains life. Among the ancestors, I am Aryama. Among the controllers, I am Death. Death is also very beautiful Vibhuti, because it makes sure that the old move out and there's space for the new to come in. Death creates space for things to exist and grow. Then he says that of all the deities, Daityanams, of all the Daityas, not deities, Daityas, the Asuras, I'm Prahlada, who has unswerving faith and never ever gave up on Bhagavan. And of all the reckoners, I am time. Time is something that can heal everything. So sometimes you just have to simply wait and let time pass. Of all the beasts, he's a lion, because a lion doesn't, make itself king. In its own nobility, it rises as king. So there are some who go around demanding everybody's respect. But there are some people who, by their presence, they become deserving of respect. And of all the pakshis, of all the birds, it says, I am Garuda, the one that flies high and sees clearly. All right? So this Thanksgiving, I know everybody has time with their families, but as we saw, let's just not only count our blessings, but make our blessings count. Really show why we're grateful. Not just think about what we're grateful for, but show why we're grateful. Yeah. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.